Seconds of silent prayer, and I would ask Chief Dens to lead us in the pledge. This meeting will be dedicated in memory of our dear friend Jack Broderick, Eugene Bauer, and Paul Humphrey. Madam Clerk, will you take the roll?
Supervisor Megan.
Present.
Councilman Park.
Present.
Councilman Hanley.
Present.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from July the 1st, 2019.
Second.
Anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Approval of the minutes of the bid opening for the West Seneca Animal Shelter Improvements Project.
Second.
Anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Moving on to legal notices, approves the publication and posting of a legal notice of a public hearing to consider a request for rezoning and special permit for property located at 1343, 1347, 1353 Union Road, being part of lots number 194 and 195, changing its classification from R65 and C1 to C2S for special use for a car wash in the town of West Seneca.
Second.
I'd like to make that motion to open the public hearing.
That was the second.
Anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. The petitioners I see are here and preparing themselves. Mr. Hopkins, if you'd like to go.
Yes, good evening, supervisor and members of the town board. Sean Hopkins, I'm also here with Joe Spino on behalf of the applicant in connection with the request to rezone 4 properties on Union Road in 0 Fremont, as well as a special use permit. I would note quickly, Joe's giving you 2 handouts. One of them is signatures that we've obtained expressing support for the project. We have about 50 nearby property owners and about 50 other town residents. And then secondly, just a couple of exhibits that we'll go over very briefly in connection with the presentation. What we're proposing on this site is shown on the first plan. It's here. We faced it out towards the neighbors so they could see it. It is a car wash facility that would comprise of redeveloping the project site. As you can see, that portion of the car wash facility along Union Road would be 2-story. That's consistent with relatively recently adopted design standards for Union Road. It's important to note that that front portion of the building, with an emphasis on the facade and pedestrian-friendly amenities, will include not only the car wash, there'll be some accessory office space, and also a small facility for the washing of dogs. The remainder of the building, including the single-story portion of the building in the back, will consist of the car wash building. Joe, if you could flip it to the next color plan, which we think really shows it from an aerial perspective. So the second color diagram we have is looking above Union Road down on the facility. You'll notice there really has been an emphasis to provide not only a pedestrian-friendly environment along Union Road, but enhanced architecture along Union Road, extensive green space and landscaping, including that portion along Norwood, which is to the right, and then also extensive green space all along the other portion of the project site as well. You can also see on that color plan where Fremont Avenue is today. And one of the concerns that came up during our review process with the nearby property owners was they want to make sure that under no circumstances will there be a driveway or roadway connection to Fremont Avenue. So we are proposing a condition that would memorialize that, and we'll talk about that in a second. The site today is currently zoned C1 and R65. We're seeking an amendment of those zoning classifications to C2 to accommodate the project. It's also important to note that if the town board approves the requested approvals in front of you this evening, that is not the final step in the review process. Then we would have to go back to the planning board for site plan approval. At that stage, the town, along with numerous town departments, will review the engineering, the lighting, the landscaping, the drainage, the sanitary sewer. So all those technical aspects of the proposed redevelopment project will need to be reviewed further in the future. What we really want to emphasize tonight is we really appreciate the effort that's been made by nearby property owners to sit down with us and collaborate with us again and again. We did hold 2 informational meetings in this very same room on both June 6th and June 27th. And if you look at that handout that I gave you at Exhibits 2 and Exhibit 3, are copies of the sign-in sheets from those 2 informational meetings. There were about 15 to 20 residents that attended each of those meetings. And then follow-up letters that Joe sent to each of the property owners that attended on June 7th and June 28th. If we could go to the next plan, Joe. So based on the original informational meeting we held with neighbors on June 6th, we refined the concept plan that we originally proposed. And how we did that was to show extensive green space, landscaping, and screening, with an emphasis, of course, on the fact that we do recognize kind of in the middle of a residential neighborhood. So along Norwood, which is on the bottom of that plan, we're showing a high-quality 6-foot fence, extensive green space, and then also along Fremont and the back portion of the site, we're showing extensive green space as well. Joe has worked closely with Joy Kibler, who's a well-known local licensed landscape architect. She's come up with this plan. It does show diversity in terms of trees, shrubs, and bushes. And again, that portion of the project will be further refined as we go through the site plan approval process. I also want to emphasize that in connection with the review process, while we've already received a lot of input from the nearby property owners, if the town board grants the requested approvals tonight, that will not be the end of that process. We'll continue to work with them in terms of those technical aspects of the project as this goes forward. It is also important to note that when this was originally in front of the planning board, there was a petition submitted expressing opposition to the project. Joe has provided you with some updated signatures. Basically, as of this moment, we have 52 nearby property owners expressing their support for the project in writing. Hopefully many of them are here this evening. And an additional 50 town residents in support of the project. As a result of that, at this juncture, there is not a single property owner with 100 feet of this site that is opposed to this project. And as such, it's quite clear as a matter of law that there is not a valid protest petition in front of you pursuant to Town Law Section 265. The other aspect of this project that I want to address very quickly is compliance with the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Everyone knows what this site looks like today. If you actually look at Exhibit 1 of my handout, it's a color photograph of the existing site conditions. From an environmental perspective, this project clearly will be beneficial. We're going to clean up the contamination. We provided you with a summary of the asbestos remediation program prepared by Raj Chopra, a well-known environmental consultant. We're going to provide green space. We're going to comply with drainage standards. We're going to comply with landscaping standards, lighting standards, et cetera, et cetera. So from a seeker perspective, unlike the typical project that comes in front of this board, the impacts are clearly positive and not negative. So we think it's quite clear you're in the position to issue a negative declaration this evening. The next thing I want to address very briefly is in your very own zoning code, there's 4 criteria that apply to any request for a special use permit. We need a special use permit for the car wash facility. And those criteria are as follows: the location, size, use, nature, intensity of the operations. 2, screening or other protective measures. 3, adequate off-street parking. And then 4, the 4th criteria is that you can impose reasonable conditions in connection with your review for a special use permit. So in terms of criteria number 1, we do think it's an appropriate use of the site. You can see there's a very deliberate planning effort to push this car wash facility up as close as possible to Union Road. Number 2, in terms of protective measures, we're showing extensive green space, landscaping, fencing, et cetera, et cetera. Criteria number 3, we have far in excess of the minimum required parking spaces in the zoning code. We're very comfortable there's adequate parking, stacking, and access aisles to accommodate this redevelopment project. It is important to note that this car wash project is not like the typical car wash project in Western New York, and that it is just a car wash facility. There's no sale of gasoline, there's no oil changes, none of those operations that are associated with the more intensive car wash facilities in West New York. And then finally, we are proposing 4 conditions in connection with this rezoning. I want to talk about those very, very briefly. So if you turn to Exhibit 5 of my handout, those are the conditions. And I want to note that we're proposing these conditions in connection with the request for the special use permit. The reason we're doing that is if you look at Town Law Section 274B4, it very clearly says that you have the ability to impose reasonable conditions in connection with your request for any special use permit. Again, the special use permit is needed for the proposed car wash facility. The first condition is that that portion of the site that's currently zoned R65, and we're proposing to rezone to C2, the only allowed principal use of that portion of the site will be the single-story portion of the car wash building. And Joe, if you could just point approximately where that is. So with the exception of that small portion of the single-story portion of the car wash building, no other use would be allowed. There's a whole assortment of uses that are allowed in that zoning classification. We're categorically saying no, they will not occur. Condition number 2 is very similar and just reflects that any accessory uses shall also be limited to the car wash facility. Stacking spaces, parking spaces, stormwater improvements, et cetera, et cetera. Condition number 3, and this is a very important condition, states that there shall be no roadway or driveway connection to Fremont Avenue. If you can point out, Joe, where that is on the plan. So we are saying not only in connection with this project, but forever. We're agreeing that's off the table. That would connect directly to a residential neighborhood. And then the 4th condition just says that with respect to each of those 3 conditions, 1, 2, and 3, we'll go down to the Erie County Clerk's office, we'll record a deed restriction, making sure those are memorialized. If Joe ever wants to go sell the project site, any prospective purchaser would be well aware of those. The only thing we want to note is, Joe, if you could go to the last plan, we want to make sure this is pedestrian friendly, and actually based on a meeting we held with the supervisor, we made a couple of refinements to the plan. Basically to ensure that there's sidewalk connections to those front entrances. So you can see we've added 2 sidewalks to the office space, to the dog grooming area. Then we've also added a sidewalk along the southern driveway to ensure that people will have safe access to those parking spaces. Again, this will need to be refined by the planning board. And then the other change we made was making it very clear that with respect to the northern driveway onto Union Road, which is exit only, that there would be the ability to turn out to the right and to the left, and then also the right lane in. So we've made those changes. Again, over the course of the past 2.5 months, we've incorporated a lot of input. And again, we really want to express our gratitude for the nearby property owners, taking a lot of time out of their schedules to meet with us and provide their input. So that's a summary of what the project is and what we're asking for. If there's any questions, either myself or Joe would welcome the opportunity to address them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. Great presentation. I would offer anyone from the public that wants to make a comment on this project, come up to the microphone.
Can everyone hear me?
No, barely.
How about now?
Yeah.
Much better? Okay. Good evening. On behalf of my neighbors and fellow West Seneca residents, I formally oppose the rezoning and special permit for the property located at 1343, 1347, and 1353 Union Road, being part of lot 194 and 95, changing its classification from R65 to C1 to C2S. The Town of West Seneca Comprehensive Plan was adopted by the Town of West Seneca on April 25th, 2016, from Mr. Eugene Hart and Mr. William Hanley, who are on the steering committee. The steering committee has identified the town center to be that section along Union Road corridor near the town hall and the library. The forebearers envisioned the Union Road corridor as a mix of shops, residents, and small businesses, making this a walkable neighborhood, pretty much like East Aurora or the village of Williamsville. A car wash so close to the town center is not what the forebearers had envisioned. The cars entering and exiting the proposed car wash would impede the natural flow of vehicle and pedestrian traffic and will cause serious injuries to pedestrians as cars whip in and out of the car wash. In addition to traffic, the proposed car wash will create noise from equipment. The developer insists the equipment is the newest on the market and combined with their noise shrouding measures will minimize the noise. But that is taking the word of a salesperson selling a product who will say anything just to make a sale. At informational meetings, we were told there's a similar car wash on Transit Road in Dubuque, Cheektowaga area, but it's impossible to compare that car wash to the proposed one because it is not at all in the same type of neighborhood as we are. That car wash is in a commercial area with no adjacent residential neighborhood. While the developer thinks he can control the noise through screening, landscaping, and placing the vacuums inside the building, there is no way he can guarantee the proposed measures will prevent cars with loud exhaust systems, loud radios, or muscle cars from disturbing the surrounding residential neighborhood. These concerns, as well as reduced property values, are major concerns for the immediate neighbors of the proposed car wash. For many people, their house is their greatest asset, and it is their hope that their house will increase in value over time, not decrease in value. 30 years ago, I purchased a house in this threatened neighborhood. During that time, I paid my taxes, I raised my family, and if I had seen a car wash located on the proposed property when my wife and I were house hunting, we would not have bought our home. A car wash in a residential neighborhood are just not compatible. The primary purpose of zoning is to segregate uses that are thought to be compatible. In practice, zoning is also used to prevent new development from interfering with existing uses and/or to preserve the character of a community. In fact, the town of West Seneca's own comprehensive development plan that was updated in 2016 states, preservation of the existing residential character of our single-family neighborhoods will continue to be the priority of the town. It is also this source document that should be the policy of the town of West Seneca to reference all rezonings and infrastructure projects planned by the town and other agencies. I cannot stress enough the importance of future development being consistent with the comprehensive development plan. Without it, West Seneca would have a mishmash of businesses incompatible with the vision of the town center and the Union Road corridor. The consensus on social media and people I spoke with is we do not need another car wash in West Seneca. Many people have equated a car wash to Tim Hortons, one on every corner. It should also be considered that the change in zoning is a slippery slope. If the proposed car wash fails or closes for any reason, it then opens the property to less desirable businesses, which will not even have to go through the zoning process. The developer's attorney has proposed to file a declaration of restriction at the Erie County Clerk's office, restricting the use of the project site in accordance with the proposed zoning conditions. If the proposed car wash fails and a less desirable company moves in, they can challenge the declaration of restriction just like the current developer is challenging the current zoning laws. There's absolutely no way the developer can guarantee 100% the noise and light pollution and poor air quality from idling cars will not adversely affect the neighborhood, especially the neighbors adjacent to the proposed car wash who are most affected. There is no doubt that the existing property is an eyesore, but it's important that a decision is not made for the sake of just putting a business to clean up the eyesore, but the right decision needs to be made to keep the parcels zoned as they currently are and to attract businesses that are in congruence with the Union Road corridor and the goals of the comprehensive development plan. This is also the time to stop the threat of poorly planned development as outlined in the SWOT analysis in the comprehensive development plan. Because if a property is rezoned, it will leave the door open to a less desirable company to move in that would not preserve the existing residential character of our neighborhoods and will reduce property values. If we deviate from the comprehensive development plan that was adopted in 2016, West Seneca will never have the town center envisioned by forebears and the steering committee who worked so hard to develop this plan. On behalf of my West Seneca neighbors and residents, I respectfully ask that the request to rezone the property located at 1343, 1347, and 1353 Union Road, being part of Lot 194 and 95 for the special use permit, be denied. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else?
Hello, my name is William Dever of 55 Fremont. So the lawyer for the business person said that there was no one in the sign within a 100-yard radius. I'm actually probably the like one of the closest lots to the facility. Unfortunately, I'm not retired and I didn't have time to lobby on behalf of a car wash. So I'm showing up tonight to state my opposition as a very close and impacted property owner if this goes through. I have a wife who, we can't even go into car washes because she has like a asthmatic reaction, if we go to a Delta Sonic, and I have 2 children. And my biggest concern isn't noise, even though I think that's gonna be a problem, but it's exhaust, it's overspray from the chemicals, it's aerosolizing brake dust, and all the things that are coming off of the car wash. And we're in the windward, direction it blows towards us. And so anyways, I just, wanted to state my opposition, and, unfortunately, I couldn't go around and get a petition, and that's my bad, but as an impacted property, I'm up against it.
Thank you, sir. Anyone further?
My name is Connie Smith, and I want to say very much that I'm very proud of the things, that Joe has done to accomplish. He's not only putting forth having the car wash on that, but he's cleaned up a lot of things that should have been taken care of many, many years ago. Things that have jeopardized people's health. I, for one, am a cancer survivor, and I'm sure there's other here that are. So if this gives us a chance to stand up and fight for what we need for a cleaner community, a nicer community, a productive community, it's not just for us, it's for the future generation. And I vote yes.
Thank you.
Amy Carpenter. While I commend the developer for all the work they've done and for them trying to get a cohesive buy-in from the neighbors, I am opposed to this project and feel that this is not what we need. I believe the gentleman who spoke about the master plan hit the nail on the head, and we need to be much more careful about what we put in instead of a quick fix, and we should be going after the current owners to clean up the mess. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tom Bausch. I live at 44 Norwood Drive since 1979. I've lived in town and worked for the town all my life. 14 years ago at the planning board meeting, April 20th, 2005, a board of 7 members rejected a proposal for a car wash at 1055 Union Road. That's where the Northwest Bank is, on Union Road, right across from the plaza. Okay, it was a unanimous decision. They rejected it. They expressed safety concerns due to vehicle traffic. Also, in their opinion, the car wash was a good fit for this section of Union Road. That was 14 years ago. At the July meeting, 2005, all 5 members of the town board rejected it. Wasn't a good fit for the town. 14 years later, half a mile down the road, we got the same request. As of right now, planning board of 7 members rejected it for the same reasons. Like 14 years ago, traffic congestion, safety, wasn't a good fit for Union Road corridor, also the zoning issue. I'm also under the impression we want more pedestrian-friendly area in the center of town. How does a car wash factor into this vision? I also want to point out that 2 Delta Sonic nearby are not situated in residential areas. There's heavy traffic, noise around the car washes. Many residents who live near the proposed site, Union Road, Norwood, Fremont, Almont, they're concerned about how the traffic and noise will affect our quality of life. To conclude, I'm bothered by the area eyesore this currently exists there also, proposed for the car wash. Like anyone else in the community, I want to see a bright space, not a space of blight. But we shouldn't rush into the space with something that doesn't represent the future of West Seneca. I strongly believe it's a mistake to put a car wash in the center of town. Our elected officials voted it down in 2005. I hope you do the same.
Thank you, Tom. Anyone further?
Hello, my name is Maya McNamee. Maybe you guys cannot understand my English. If you don't, please ask me again. I am new resident 30 Armand and Fremont and the Armand corner, right behind and the car wash and they're gonna put it in. You understand what I'm saying? Okay, I moved in about 2.5 months ago. When I purchased this house, my real estate and nobody tell me about anything about what they're gonna be in Union Road. My plan was, when I purchased this house, my future investment. I've been living in West Seneca area 20 years. I have another house off of Main Street. So when I heard somebody approach me and we're gonna have a car wash behind my house, I was shocked. Then, my neighbor gave me Joe phone numbers. So I spoke with him. He told me what it sounds like and what, but I don't know anybody drive by Ridge Road and Delta Sonic car wash nearby. I drove by at the meeting with Joe and Ridge Road. I drove by. Sounds loud, and also the vacuum cleaning area is loud too, because then also if I want a future, my extra land, I'm gonna put it in the house over there, but I'm gonna say no for the car wash, 110%. So, because I'm gonna lose a lot of money, you gotta understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
The pictures didn't turn out great on my frame spot.
Mike Hester, 67 Fremont Avenue. I've lived there for 62 years, my whole life. This is what we look at today. Union Road, Fremont Avenue. It's a mess. It's gotta be cleaned up. I've been promised time and time again, it's gonna be cleaned up. There's a process. We've been going through the process and we've gotten only this far. Down below, I got two pictures there, because a gentleman has kept telling me that in his experience, after a couple of years, car washes are terrible, they look terrible. The one on there is North America Drive. It's probably been there 25, 30 years. It looks nicer than the day it was built. The other one there is from Harlem and Clinton, which has probably been there close to 40 years. If you go by either one of those, they look as nice, if not better, than when they were built. I originally brought up the thing of Delta Sonic. And first thing he told me, oh, you can't bring up Delta Sonic, they got more money than got it. Well, I think Mr. Spino has sure proven what he can build and what he's willing to build and help out the residents on Fremont Avenue, Almont, Norwood. I canvassed the neighborhood with a petition. I could have possibly gotten 64 houses. I was only able to talk to 56 people. The other people I never was able to get a hold of. We got 52 signatures. So these are just residents on Fremont, Almont, and Norwood on this end, not on the other side of Center Road. This is all people that are directly impacted by this project. Everybody's 100% for it. Not only for the cleanup, just to have a presentable thing there. Some residents, including myself, have talked to realtors and for people that do house appraisals. It's not gonna take down the values of our home. For what we're looking at now, to do that is gonna increase the value of our homes by far. So anybody here that can say that it's gonna take down the values of their home, get a hold of a realtor or get a hold of somebody that does appraisals and have them look at it, because you're wrong. A lot of people have been coming here saying opposed, many people opposed and this and that. There's a few that are opposed to this in our direct neighborhood. A lot of people keep coming here and throwing shit on the wall and see if it'll stick. No. This project is a good project. Mr. Spino has done all his homework. So at this time, I'd like to thank Mr. Spino and Mr. Hopkins for the fantastic job they have done presenting this project to the residents and to the town board and the planning board. I think this is a go. I think this will be beneficial. Most of you all here drive by that project, drive by that greenhouse 3, 4, 5 times a day. You can't say it's a nice enhancement to this brand new library for $15 million. His project will fit with this perfect. Union Road is a 4-lane highway. It is not a residential road, it's a highway. The traffic will absorb itself on Union Road like it always has. You want businesses there, you want retail there. This is a business, this is retail. It's it. You know, I mean, you can't say, you know, we want retail and we want businesses in there, but we don't want traffic. It comes with it. It's part of the territory. So, that's all I got to say. Thank you. I hope you vote the right way.
Thank you, Michael. Anyone further? So first I would just like to ask board members if you have any comments.
I do. This is a very difficult situation or decision for me to make. It's under the comprehensive plan. It is difficult to locate a car wash in the center of town. That is clearly not what I think the committee at the time had anticipated. It's also clearly an improvement to the property. My big concern is that the improvements happen now. How long, what's this building gonna look like in 10 or 15 years? I have no idea. I'm not familiar with I believe this is a franchise? No? It's a personal thing?
It's owned and operated by myself. And can I ask you, Gene, what makes you think that something would go so wrong?
I just have.
Do you have experience with?
I have seen car washes that over the years have deteriorated, where the owners didn't have the wherewithal to maintain them.
Something of this kind of structure and this kind of dollar amount invested?
This is a different look, definitely. You did a nice job. If you could take that down and let the people see what it looks like. I mean, it does conform with our design standards, which I appreciate. And it is a significant investment. Whether it should be located in the center of town is the only question. Whether it conforms with the comprehensive plan is a question. Are we going to stick with our comprehensive plan and follow it? It's a decision I guess that the board will have to make. Even at this late moment, I'm not certain how I'm going to vote on this. I know it negatively impacts some of the residents, and other residents, of course, will tell you that getting rid of that eyesore that's been there for so long, it's been so resistant to change, it's been in court time and time again. This will definitely improve the back end of the property and the neighborhood. So the only question I have is regards to the comprehensive plan and the way it was written. So I'm gonna yield the floor to either Bill or Sheila at this time.
I'll tell you, we did spend a lot of time on the comprehensive plan when we put that together. However, you know, you try to think of everything that's going to happen, zoning, changing buildings. I don't know if any of us even thought about a car wash. I think of the comprehensive plan as a living document. It's not perfect, it's very well prepared, but things change over time. I did have a couple of questions for either one of you guys, but sure. You guys had a lot of meetings with the residents between your first attempt at the town and beyond. What has changed from your first plan to back? You know, I mean, maybe Joe, how about the operations of the business? Are they gonna be open 24/7? Tell us a little bit about how the business is gonna run.
Sure, it's the typical hours Monday through Friday will be.
Get in the mic, please.
Sure, I'll repeat myself. Typical business hours Monday through Friday would close at 9 o'clock. Saturday and Sunday you would close at 7 or 6 o'clock p.m. So it would be very, as far as like very cohesive to like business hours that you typically find in most businesses.
Joe, how many employees are we talking about? If this is a card operation, or or what is it?
So we typically have 4 to 5 employees on at any given time, and we probably employ 20 to 25 employees.
This, the type of car wash where it's a track, the car, gets on the track and then it's dragged through the system?
Yes, yes.
I imagine that the upkeep and cost in the long run is pretty high for an operation like this.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know, whether you have the wherewithal. I'm guessing you do, or you wouldn't attempt.
I do, Gene, and you made a few references to there about that I wouldn't take care of the building or the machinery inside of it.
I'm not saying you wouldn't take care of it. I wouldn't know whether you could or not take care of it.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a big operation. It's very expensive equipment.
Gene, I just wanted to back up and explain my history. My last 25 years, I've been owning 30,000 square foot facilities in the fitness world that also break all the time, and that also cost 1.5 million per location. And we've had 6 or 7 locations at one time. So when it comes to having 30 to 35 employees per location, times 6, times all those overheads, all those tax payments, all those headaches, this guy did it. This guy mastered it. So sometimes I get a little defensive when you tell me that it's not going to last more than a couple of years, or I can't sustain this and all that. I can open this thing and run it and never take a salary off it.
If you interpreted what I was saying, I don't know if you're gonna own this forever. I mean, maybe, I know you sold all your gyms and probably did well on that.
After 25 years.
And how long will you be operating this to?
Let's forecast another 25 years.
Yeah.
The other thing I just want to note is that, again, while this is Mr. Spino's first opportunity in this particular business, I mean, he really does have a very clear and successful track record in terms of being an entrepreneur. I want to note that while you wouldn't think that a car wash is similar to a gym, it kind of is, because the new model is subscription-based. You pay a monthly fee, you come and use that service when you want. So they're really quite similar in terms of the business model, the labor requirements. Gyms are very expensive in terms of all the equipment. Joe is very familiar with that, and I think you just want to make it clear that he easily has the resources to pull this off. This is not envisioned to be the only project, but Joe's also looking for other locations in Western New York to implement similar successful redevelopment projects. This is not a one-shot deal. This just happens to be the first project.
And Joe, just what is the investment in a facility like this? Just curious. You probably know the number right down to the penny by now, I would think.
I'll just ballpark for $3 million. Yeah. So
That's a very nice investment for the town of West Seneca.
and also, I still own fitness facilities and still operate fitness facilities and still have employees that run fitness facilities for me. We still have locations that I still own. So this isn't my only business at this current time.
Joe, about the driveway going, the egress driveway, is that, are we set on turning both directions, or can we steer that to the north, or will that be decided at the planning board, or planning board can change things if it goes that far?
Yeah, so ultimately Union Road is a state highway subject to the jurisdiction of the New York State Department of Transportation. I've had a very preliminary discussion with DOT. When it gets to site plan, we'll have to meet with them, and ultimately we'll need a highway work permit from DOT. But our goal would be have separate left and right exiting lanes out of the facility. Therefore, because there are times, no doubt, when Union Road is busy, when it's difficult to take a left out of the site, at least you'll be able to bypass if you're heading to the north.
All right, and I did check with the assessor, and I was ballparking a business, commercial business like this, with a $750,000 price tag would bring in approximately $30,000 in tax revenue to the town. That wouldn't be the reason for our decision, but just letting the residents know that.
Yeah, the other thing I mentioned it, but I want to make sure it's clear that obviously we're here this afternoon or this evening on July 15th. The goal would be to get this project approved as soon as possible, because the very first step in this process is taking care of that asbestos. That needs to be done, subject to a lot of oversight, including the New York State Health Department. Before anything else is done, that will occur. The neighbors have expressed concerns. That's why we did that summary. We'll make sure that we're coordinating that process. There's a whole host of safety mitigation measures that need to be implemented with that. But that is literally stage one of this project, meaning even under this crazy scenario where somehow the project doesn't work out, which is not gonna occur, the site's gonna be clean. That's step one.
Sean, what is the cost of the cleanup?
Several $100,000. You know, we don't know the precise number, but it's way more than six figures.
Do you have a timeline on the cleanup?
As soon as we receive site plan approval, then our environmental consultant, Raj Chopra, has to finalize the paperwork. He's already done a draft of the remedial plan, and then there are notice provisions that apply before we can actually start the work. So as soon as possible. And Joe, do we know how long it will take? It's actually not gonna take that long.
Raj told me about 3 weeks.
It'll take about 3 weeks to complete.
That's just the cleanup?
Yes.
I just have a question. The building materials you're going to use, I mean, it's hard to determine what they are when you look at the rendition there. I'm just curious, I see stone. What would the white, would this kind of like a panel or something?
It's not finalized, actually. The vision's not 100% finalized. We'll be working with your Union Road corridor. So the Union Road corridor has specific visions of what we can use material-wise. So we'll work alongside with them to figure out the finished material. That's why it's white. That's why it's purposely left white.
Yeah, okay. I was just wondering if that, it's just a rendition of the basic design.
Yeah, and that is one thing when you come back to the comprehensive plan. The town spent a lot of time developing those Union Road corridor design guidelines, and our goal was to comply with them. And I think this will be perhaps the first project that's occurred since that. So it really will enhance the street frontage. We will provide the sidewalks, the landscaping, specifies the architectural materials. We're going to comply with those standards. And we'll welcome your input as we get to that stage.
It won't look significantly different though than what you have right now, correct?
No, generally that will be the look. Again, we're trying to make it look, if you look at it from Union Road, the goal is for it not to look like your typical 1984 car wash.
I know that the planning board will be going over this in quite a bit of detail, I assume. What about signage? We're not gonna have a lot of flashing bright signage to...
We have to identify ourselves. We do have to identify the business, of course, but the signage has not been put on there because we're just not quite set what the signage is gonna be, but there will be a sign on the building.
And the blue
Blue Buffalo, of course.
Okay, if there's nothing further, I'm gonna make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
So I just wanted to address the petition received by some of the residents opposing this applicant's request. So the petition was received at planning board and again tonight by town board. There was 26 signatures in opposition to the project. So that would trigger a section of our code, section 120-23B1. Under that section, there's a requisite 20% of the area of the land, either adjacent or opposite, and 100 feet therefrom to qualify under that section of code to require a supermajority of the board vote. And so I've worked with our town assessor to determine if we have that, and I received new signatures today withdrawing their prior signatures in opposition. So people who had signed before and appear to have now withdrew their opposition would be James Nicholas at 28 Norwood Drive, Joan Burdick at 24 Norwood Drive, James Yeomans at 20 Altmont Avenue, Derek Termer at 49 Fremont Ave, and Sarah Termer at 49 Fremont Ave. Those particular people that I list were crucial to the petition because they were within the area, either adjacent or opposite and 100 feet therefrom. And with my analysis of everything, the petition would be facially insufficient to require a supermajority at this time based on all the information I just put into the record. So at this time, it would just need to pass by a majority vote.
I wasn't aware of the petition against, and I don't know if it was off by one or if it's more
but I haven't signed any petition, and I'm opposed. And I'm within the 100-yard range.
Okay, so that may be, but
I'm
if
just
you,
asking.
so a resident circulated the petition, it's not something that's circulated by the town. I don't know if the person who circulated it is here tonight, but they went around on May 4th and May 6th to neighboring properties, and some people actually who signed the petition aren't neighboring properties, and so they obviously didn't ask you to sign the petition.
And based on the 20% requirement, I don't think one more property would make any difference at this point.
Not at this point, given the fact that not everybody that signed the petition fell within that area. And then those that later withdrew their opposition, it wasn't even close at that point.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seek a resolution for 1343, 1347, 1353 Union Road and 0 Fremont Avenue, West Seneca, New York. Whereas the town board, Town of West Seneca, as lead agency acting pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, Article 8 of New York State Environmental Conservation Law, has reviewed Part 1 of the short environmental assessment form prepared by the applicant for the property located at 1343, 1347, 1353 Union Road and 0 Fremont for construction of a car wash facility, associated parking, landscaping, stormwater design, and utilities, and review the draft completed by Part 2 of the EAF analyzing the potential for the project to result in any significant adverse environmental impacts, and otherwise has taken a hard look at and to identify the potential environmental impacts utilizing the criteria specified in 6 NYCRR 617.7C, and whereas upon review of parts 1 and 2 of the EAF documentation and plans submitted by the applicant in connection with the new review of the project, the town board has not identified any potential significant adverse environmental impacts associated with the proposed use of the subject property, has determined that the preparation of the environmental impact statement is not necessary and that the issuance of a negative declaration is therefore appropriate. Now therefore let it be resolved that pursuant to 6 NYCRR 617.7A, the town board does hereby adopt a negative declaration with respect to the project based on its determination that the project will not result in any potentially significant adverse environmental impact. I need a second.
Second.
Anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Resolution by 1343, 1347, 1353 Union Road and 0 Fremont Avenue, West Seneca, New York. Whereas the JSEK West Seneca LLC made an application for rezoning of 1343, 1347, 1353 Union Road and 0 Fremont Avenue, West Seneca, New York from R65 to C1 to C12S special use permit for a car wash facility. Whereas the matter has been heard before the planning board, referred to the town board, let it be resolved that the town of West Seneca does hereby amend the zoning classification of 1343, 1347, 1353 Union Road and 0 Fremont Avenue, West Seneca, New York, from R65 and C1 to C2S, and grant special use permit for car wash facility. The special use permit is subject to the following conditions. The only allowed principal use of the portion of the project site to be zoned from R65 to C2 shall be a portion of a single-story portion of a car wash. No other principal use is allowed in C2 zoning district as set forth in section 120-20A, expressly permitted principal uses. In section 120-20B, using the requiring the special use permit of a zoning code shall be permitted on a portion of the project site to be rezoned from C1 to C2. The only allowed accessory uses a portion of the project site to be zoned from R65 to C2 shall be those accessory uses incidental to the proposed car wash project, such as stack spaces, parking spaces, stormwater management improvements, landscaping, screening, and lighting, etc. There shall be not any driveway or roadway connection from project site to Fremont Avenue. This condition shall be permanent. The applicant shall be required to record a declaration of restriction, Erie County Clerk's Office, restricting the use of the project site in accordance with the special use permit conditions number 1, 2, and 3, upon receiving site plan approval for the proposed car wash project from the planning board. The declaration of restrictions shall state that the restrictions are enforceable upon the successors and the assigns of the applicant and shall run with the land, and the declaration restriction cannot be modified unless approved by the majority vote of a town board after holding a public hearing. A copy of the recorded declaration of restrictions and recording receipts shall be provided to the town clerk's office, town attorney's office, and code enforcement.
Second. Second.
Anything on the question? All in
On the
favor?
question.
Yes.
This is a really difficult decision, as I've said, because I am a big believer in the application of the comprehensive plan. And this is somewhat of a variance from what the comprehensive plan vision. But I think when you look at the condition of that property that it currently is in and has been for many years, this is a step forward. With the restrictions on the property, I think that does somewhat protect the residents that live behind this property. I also believe that it's a $3 million investment in the town. And I think that one of the issues and one of the things we need to do is encourage investment, even if it varies somewhat from what we all would like it to be. We can't always get what we want, but I think this is definitely a step forward and an improvement, and I'm going to be voting for it.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Good luck to you and your project. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'll give you a moment to collect your items because you don't have to sit through the rest of the meeting.
Thanks.
Okay, for those of you who want to exit the meeting, feel free to do that now. And then I'll give them 2 minutes and we're gonna start back up. Okay, now we're gonna move on to a report from our code enforcement officer regarding the status of the Birchfield. Jeffrey Sheever, code enforcement officer. Go ahead with your report.
Prior, months and months ago, the town board had tasked various departments through the town to explore the possibility of repairing the Birchfield building. The town engineering department, we had town buildings and grounds department, as well as our office, researched the potential for the building to be repaired. So firstly, we reviewed the report provided by the forensic architect that the town had secured. Briefly, that report outlined various issues with the building as it exists today. As the report continued, it also outlined recommendations for various repairs for the building. So we took the forensic report that we had, we utilized the services in the town here. We contacted various local contractors to meet us at the building. That way we could secure their opinions and expertise as well as we work through this process. So briefly, the repair of the birch field would consist of the following things.
Excuse me, Ray, will you close that door for me? I saw him standing there. Thank you.
So briefly, we just have to remove the damaged stuff as we see it today. So that involves the demolition of exterior walls on the, I call them the gallery areas. Those are the areas with the flat roofs, one fronting Union Road and one subsequently on the rear of the building. The exterior walls get removed, and then we sought a contractor to install masonry units, concrete blocks. That would be from the ground to approximate maybe the bottom of the windowsills, right? So in theory, that eliminates all the wood framing below ground, which is seemingly one of the problems that exist today. We would have to frame some new walls on those areas and install new windows in those areas. We looked at the roofs of the building, right? So one of the options was to provide a liquid reinforced spray coating over the flat roof areas. That had something like a 15-year warranty. We have all the literature on that as well from the contractor. There was some other various issues with the building outlined in that forensic report. So let's start from the top and work our way down. Because of the ice problems, the asphalt shingle roofing system is bad. So we sought proposals to tear off all of the shingles and replace them with new shingles. We also sought proposals to re-side the building. There's various points around some of the windows in which the aluminum flashing either was not installed correctly or is not sealed. So all these problems, trying to eliminate all these problems, I guess, for a very long time. So there's a proposal in there to tear off all the old vinyl siding. That also helps us expose the building to see if there's any further damage. We had one proposal to side the building. Another issue outlined in the forensic architecture report was insulation. We were up in the attics of the building. Clearly that report outlines there's not enough insulation. It may be installed incorrectly. There's various holes in the insulation. Even in your house, this leads to a poor design. So we sought a proposal to remove all the fiberglass insulation throughout the ceiling and the roof area and have the entire roof sprayed with foam. Technology changes. This is a superior insulation product. We get a lot better R value. In most instances, there's no need for ventilation in your roof anymore because it is such a superior R value. Another item outlined in the forensic report was the mechanical system. So currently they're located in the attic. The intent would be to abandon them in place. One, because of the sheer size of them, we'd have to actually demo portions of the building to get them out. So the intent is to leave them in place and abandon them, and then subsequently install new mechanical systems on ground level, where they're more serviceable and practical, and they make more sense. That would then leave us to repair the inside of the building, then, minor electrical work and floors and ceiling, drywall, and doors and trim, and paint, right? Based on the approximate numbers we have gotten from contractors by meeting them there and talking to them, we guess, the best guess we can provide the board is that the cost is approximately $500,000 to repair the Birchfield building. That we also came up with some sort of time frame. Our best guess is that this takes approximately 6 months to complete from start to finish. There's various other things that we're relying, I guess, at this point, in which maybe town employees or departments can provide things like regrading the exterior of the building along the creek to ensure positive water flow away from the building. I'm thinking our highway guys can do things like that and grass seed. So our best guess is about $500,000 and about 6 months in time.
That $500,000, Jeff, how much of that are you leaving as contingency? Because there's obviously maybe other problems with the building that we don't see right now. We'll see when we take the siding off or the roofing off, that may need additional cost and work.
Sure, we did secure some approximate numbers from contractors, and then obviously we're unable to determine how much it's actually gonna cost should buildings and grounds build some walls, things like that. So there is an allowance in there for town work, right, simply to buy materials and things, as well as there's an allowable item for, truthfully, we would never know until we start this work if there's more portions of the building. But this encompasses the area on the rear of the building, in the gallery area, and down the rear wall to the corner of the building. That's seemingly where the most damage has been done. Subsequently, the other gallery area, the walls would be replaced as well. But truthfully, that's where we're starting, because that's simply what we can see now.
So Jeff, my understanding is that on the, what would be the east side of the building, the back, that damage was caused by groundwater, and that the other side, the west side of the gallery, that was caused by inadequate roofing. Is that true?
Yeah, so, you know, clearly there's nothing wrong with the way the building was built. It was just the accessibility portion of it entering the back of the building caused the grade to be installed, 12 inches above the wood framing. So water damage on the back, agreed. And then there are various spots in the roofing system, more specifically the flat roofs, which require some attention. So this system, you may not be familiar with it because you very rarely ever see it. Most commercial buildings, as they get rehabbed, have this white liquid reinforced fiberglass, whatever the case may be, applied, which carries the warranties and everything else. So it's also, a little more solar efficient. It doesn't absorb the heat, all these kind of things there.
That really wasn't that expensive a process from what I understand from looking at the listing.
I mean, truthfully, based on what the contractors we spoke to, as well as the prices we've secured, the most expensive portion is the mechanicals. I believe that was in the area of about $140,000. And truthfully, I guess we work with a contractor that allows us to buy the materials and our employees to assist on the installation. I don't know how that works, but that was the most expensive part so far.
Jeffrey, the roofing material would have to be put on by the contractor. It's not something that the town employees can do, correct?
Right, so we tried to limit the actions of the town employees to standard stuff that is done throughout the town. A little bit of demolition of the exterior walls, a little bit of wall framing, grading on the exterior, some drywall work, paint, floors, trim, doors. Nothing that would require, the technical aspect of installing the liquid roof system or the mechanical systems, things like that.
Jeff, I'm assuming that the roofing work that you quoted would just be the usual shingled system?
Correct. The intent would be to remove what's there down to the decking and replace that should there be damage found, and then subsequently install with a new 30-year asphalt shingle, as per all the specifications. And typically these contractors that install roofs, this is what they do, so.
That number came in at $200,000. Roofing, siding, windows was a $200,000 estimate.
That is correct. So just for the roof and the siding on the exterior, all the metalwork, gutters, the windows, I think there's like 22 windows in the gallery areas on both sides. That was about $200,000.
Would any other roofing materials be considered, do you think? I have no idea what a metal, for example, would cost.
I simply give my opinion. When you have a roof that is a typical gable roof that's, up one side and down the other side, metal makes a little more sense. When you get into complicated roofs, such as that one with all the valleys and the hips and the dormers, it's a little more complicated. Roof is generally more expensive than shingles, just cost-wise. It's just sometimes you save on the installation, because most often you don't remove the shingles underneath, you simply go over what's there.
Metal isn't attractive for that building, so we wouldn't want that. But what we do want the public to know, we mentioned it this afternoon at the work session, The tear down of the building would be 45,000, the rebuild would be about 1.9, right? So the opportunity here is that we start in November when Buildings and Grounds have the opportunity, because they're not in their parks. We're gonna put some financing together to see how we're gonna roll that out. And hopefully it will be in stages, but our communication with the Birchfield Group, we wanna thank them again for their patience and willingness to work through this. And hopefully we'll have a plan in play before the end of August. It's good, okay. So I thank you, Jeff, for all that hard work, and along with Mr. Tanner. So we're going to move on now. If anyone from the public has anything regarding communications, it's a very short agenda. Okay, there is no one. Do you have something on communications?
Oh, you're talking about issues of the public, or is this?
No, I'm talking, we have to get through communications.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I thought there was communicating.
No, it's on the, what's on our
I
agenda?
have an agenda tonight.
Oh, you want mine, Paula?
No, that's
All right.
okay.
So we're gonna move on to communications then, and see how Emily jumped right up, she was gonna get you.
Do you want me to give you
What a woman. Okay, item number 1 is from Tina Hawthorne. Kindly adopt the attached resolution accepting the dedication of J.C. Lane and Samantha Court, authorizing the supervisor to execute the necessary documents to complete the transfer.
Second.
Anything on the agenda, on the question? All in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Item number 2 is also from Town Attorney Tina Hawthorne. Kindly schedule a public hearing. Town Board regularly scheduled meeting held at the Community Center for on the 12th day of August 2019 at 7 o'clock to hear all persons interested in the creation of a lighting district number 64 Princeton Park. The property boundary subject to a special district is described on the attached Schedule A. The proposed improvement includes the installation of 15 new LED lights with connection costs to be paid by the developer Morano Mark Equity. The approximate cost to the district, typically property is about $76.51.
Second.
Anything on the question? All in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Item 3 is from Steve Tanner, Town Engineer. Received the bids earlier today regarding the animal project. And at $168,295 from Camco and $154,000 from MGR Construction. We reviewed the references and are comfortable with their ability to successfully complete the work. The $154,000 bid includes $10,000 contingency allowance that may or may not be necessary once they tear off the old roofing materials. So it is their recommendation that the town award the contract of $154,000 to MGR Construction.
Second.
Anything on the question? All in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Number 4 is from Lauren Massett, our Recreation Director. Please accept the resignation of Briggs Hogel and have the supervisor sign the necessary forms with Erie County personnel.
Second.
Anything on the question? All in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Item number 5 is also from Lauren. Please amend the hourly rate for Carson Drews, lifeguard, to $12 an hour retroactively to June 3rd, 2019. Once he submits his valid WSI and PSI certification, his pay rate should return to $12.50 an hour. Have the supervisor sign the necessary forms with Erie County personnel.
Second.
Anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Item 6 is also from Lauren Massett. Please allow the supervisor to execute the necessary documents to enter into an agreement with West Seneca Central School District for the use of the town of West Seneca owned athletic fields facilities for the year 2019 through 2020 school year.
Second.
Anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Item. This is from Daniel Denz. Kindly accept the resignation of Jacob Fibbich as public safety dispatcher, part-time, effective Friday, July 12, 2019, and authorize the supervisor to sign the necessary forms with Erie County personnel.
Second.
Anything on the question? All in favor? Aye. Motion carried. From Megan Wennick, our finance director, please accept the resignation of Jody Wasaki, effective Friday, July 26, 2019.
Second.
Anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Excuse me. I'd like to make a motion to approve the celebration of summer for July the 25th, presented by the Lions Club.
Second.
Anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, I'm gonna make a motion to approve the Jackie Felser's Town Clerk's Report, Receiver of Taxes for June 2019.
Second.
Oh my God. Sorry. And for Jeffrey Sheber, Code Enforcement Officer, Building and Plumbing.
Second.
Anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.